All right, welcome to another episode of Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. I am the Daily News NFL columnist, Giants beat writer, here to talk about Giants Jets with a special guest, Antwan, Staley of the New York Daily News. First, want to tell you about Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. Also, remember to subscribe on YouTube at PL on NFL. Like, review, subscribe. Also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. But without further ado, let's get back to a great friend of the show, my coworker, Antwan Staley, columnist, Jets beat writer at the New York Daily News. And Antwan, I understand you have a special announcement for us today on the pod.
Yeah, I'll not only by your colleague on at the Daily News, like I'll be your colleague on Believe as well, and I have a podcast that'll be coming out later on in a few weeks called Back Page Breakdown, which is obviously dedicated to our back page of the Daily News, and just
Wow.
talking NFL and also specifically Jets as well. But we'll talk about some general NFL stuff too as well. But yeah, it'll be twice a week there, about 20-25 minutes each show, and yeah, we'll have special guests on. I'm sure I'll have you on at some point too as well. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Man, I love the name. Congratulations. Welcome to Believe. And yeah, as our listeners know, every time you're on here, you kill it. So your podcast is going to kill it. I can't wait to hear it. Can't wait to listen. And great season for you to do it, of course, because you're at the center of attention right now, right? With the Jets, Hard Knocks. I mean, what's it been like for you as a reporter? Even we haven't even gotten to the regular season. Just what is your daily life like right now compared to, let's say, a year ago?
It's been crazy. It's been a lot of people wanting me to do interviews and stuff like that. And not only that, it's a lot of attention with the team. Obviously, when you got Aaron Rodgers coming in, like it just brings a whole different dynamic of media attention. Not just locally but nationally too. There's been a lot of people talking about the Jets and their potential and their window to possibly win a Super Bowl, contend in the AFC as well. And everybody wants a piece of it. And then obviously they signed Dalvin Cook, and that also brings in another dynamic too. So it seems like everybody just wants a piece of the Jets and everybody that's surrounding it right now, especially with Hard Knocks being there for the next few weeks too as well.
Well, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he is the star, the big face, the shining on the bright lights, the Jets, why they are thinking Super Bowl. And so let me start off with my first Jets question is we see he's playing in this preseason finale against the Giants a little bit. My question to you is just why? I mean, I know he's new to the team, but why is he playing in a meaningless preseason game?
Personally, I don't know because I would not play him at all. But I'm not surprised totally because he knows the offense very well, better than anybody, all the other players on the roster. He doesn't necessarily know his teammates because a lot of the players have been out specifically throughout the course of training camp. Garrett Wilson missed about 2 weeks with an ankle injury. A lot of the
Mm,
offensive linemen have not been able to generate chemistry. Elijah Vera Tucker, Lincoln Tomlinson have been out the last week too with various injuries. Dwayne Brown, who, for what I understand, will be cleared to practice. Finally, he's been on the PUP list throughout the last month for training camp. He's scheduled to come back this week. I don't know his availability to play, but yeah, you're trying to gain those chemistry with your teammates, and I guess the best way to do that is actually get out there and play. I think it's too much of a risk personally,
mm.
especially in the last preseason game where you got basically 2 weeks away from the season starting. Monday night against the Buffalo Bills. But I get it from their perspective too, because Aaron does know the offense, but he's still trying to gain that chemistry with his teammates.
Good news on Duane Brown there. Yeah, it's interesting. You have to question it just because obviously Giants players aren't going to be trying to hurt anybody, but there's guys trying to make the roster. And what better way to get your coach's attention than to sack Aaron Rodgers if you're a Giants pass rusher or defensive lineman, right? So seems a little risky. Simply though, you've been out there every day in Florham Park. Just how has Rodgers looked? How has he looked from a playing physical standpoint at quarterback? And then how has he looked kind of around the team as well?
I think he's been as good as advertised. I think he looks like one of the top 5, 6 best quarterbacks in football still. I mean, I know last year was a bit of a down year for him. I know he had a variety of injuries there that he played through. And also, he didn't necessarily have the best supporting cast around him in Green Bay.
Yeah.
And also, it took him a while to gain some chemistry with his receivers like Christian Watkins and some of the other guys there. But yeah, I think now when you got a guy like Garrett Wilson there and the team around him, they end up signing Alan Lazard, Nicole Hartman. Obviously, we talked about Dalvin Cook. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about him too as well. I think you just see the potential with this team, and I think offensively, it's been some ups and downs. I think a lot of it has to do with the makeshift offensive line there. They hadn't had their 4 or 5 there yet throughout the course of training camp. But
Mhm.
Aaron himself has looked good. I think he's been one of the best players, if not the best player on the field every single day he's out there.
Great to hear. That's what Jets fans want to hear. You mentioned Dalvin Cook a couple times, and obviously he's front of mind with this new signing. And I guess one of my main questions for you there is, with all the weaknesses on the O line, still you're giving this money to a running back. Is this a case of, now listen, I know Joe Douglas is the general manager, but is this a case of Aaron Rodgers' assistant GM? Like of them listening to the quarterback and the quarterback saying, "Let's go get me another weapon." I mean, is that how you would explain this, or is that unfair?
I think it's a little bit unfair, but also if Aaron wants somebody, they're gonna definitely listen and go get them if they can. So
Yeah,
and Aaron saw Dalvin Cook firsthand in the NFC North for many years, and you're like, yeah, if we have a chance to get this guy, why not spend the money to get him? Especially considering the amount of money that he sacrificed for this team,
yeah, right.
which is unheard of. Like that amount of money, like what superstar, especially a guy that's won 2 of the last 3 MVP awards, would sacrifice that much money. So you better do what he tells you to do, to be honest, especially if you're trying to win a Super Bowl. But yeah, I think also I think the reason you go out and get a Dalvin Cook is because you got Brees Hall coming off an ACL injury. As you know, especially covering Saquon, he was not right, after his ACL tear. It took him a full year to get back to form, and last year, I think we saw that. We saw the old kind of the size of the old Saquon Barkley and him leading the Giants offense to what I think a lot of people expected. And it could take Brees Hall a little bit of time for him to get back to form prior to what his injury was, like the ACL tear. That's
Yeah.
why you go out and get a Dalvin Cook because they can't really afford to wait, for people to try to come back into form. They're trying to win now, and there's a short window, especially when you got a guy that's will turn 40 in December at the quarterback position. Yeah, you don't know how many years or that window looks like. So that's why you go out and get a guy like Dalvin Cook.
With how this Cook contract is structured, I know Michael Lombardi, a friend of the pod, kind of broke down how unusual it is that it appears almost like it's guarding against a potential suspension because he's guaranteed all this money, whether he's on PUP, inactive, IR, basically anything but a suspension, commissioner's exempt list. I know you guys have kind of asked Robert Saleh about this too. Like, where do you think that stands? Do you think that the Jets quietly think he might be suspended, or there might be some games he's not available for? And what do you make of how that's structured, and just whether they expect to have him kind of for the full year, or maybe have to work without him for a time?
Externally, they'll tell you they're not worried about a suspension. Dalvin was asked that. Robert Saleh was asked that. They said they did their homework. They feel comfortable about the signing of Dalvin Cook with all the things that transpired and what the Star Tribune reported.
Hmm.
Internally, you look at the contract, so that tells you all you need to know. Like they are somewhat concerned about a possible suspension because otherwise you wouldn't frame the language to be the way that it is if you wouldn't. So I
Yeah.
think they're just spinning it and PR wise, at least publicly, that they're not, which is it's cool. Like I mean, that's what you expect teams to do, but
Hmm.
ultimately you got to be somewhat concerned about a possible suspension, considering the fact that a lot of this case is still pending.
Yeah, and is that like from a reporting standpoint on where that stands, is that still a legal situation, or is it a league review of player status situation?
Both. We're
Okay.
still like some legal things pending there, so it's he really can't talk about too much of the case there, or so obviously if we asked him, then he's gonna decline not to talk about it because it's legal aspect of it. But yeah, the
Right.
league still needs to approve it. It could be something that it maybe gets solved until the off season because legally it takes a long time for all this stuff to kind of transpire, and I think
Oh boy.
once it gets settled legally, then I think the NFL will come in and decide what they want to do. But that could take 6, 7 months or so, and that might be January, February, March, and Dalvin's only going to be with the Jets for a year, we think anyway.
Man, yeah, you and I, we know all too well as NFL reporters how long that legal process takes, especially once it gets in season. how often it just happens to wait until the next offseason to be resolved. So we've mentioned the running back, we've mentioned the quarterback, and of course, the question and the topic on everybody's mind right now in Jets land in front of them is the offensive line. And so, can you just download for us right now on what the line looks like right now from left to right, where you think the biggest concerns are? If you think those, like if Brown coming back is going to solve a problem, let's say, but where do you think it stands? What's good enough? What needs to get better? And is it going to be fixed internally or externally?
Well, it seems like every week is some kind of change on the offensive line. But here's how I think it's going to shake out
Okay.
when the regular season starts. You have Duane Brown at left. He's going to be your left tackle there. He'll be 38 later on this month too. He came back from a double shoulder surgery that he had during the off season, so that's still a concern, especially with his age too. You don't see a lot of offensive linemen play near their 40s, so
Yeah.
but yeah, they love what he did. Like he basically played last year on one shoulder, and the Jets and Robert Saleh commend him for that. So he'll be the left tackle. Lincoln Tomlin is somebody that struggled his first year with the Jets as well, but somebody they're paying big money to. So they have a lot of high expectations from him, and hopefully he can have a bounce back year from him. Center position, Connor McGovern was the starter last year. He was the only player that played all 17 games on the offensive line for the Jets last year. But they drafted Joe Tippin from Wisconsin, who they imagine to be the heir apparent to him at some point. But I imagine McGovern will begin the year as the starting center. Right guard, Elijah Red Tucker is back, came back from a torn triceps there. Uh, Suffered that the same game that Brees Hall tore his ACL, which is just a killer for the Jets too. They were 5-2 at that point, and then only won 2 more games the rest of the year after that. So no need to really stress his importance there. He played 3 different positions on the offensive line last year. He played left
Mm,
tackle, right guard, and right tackle. So that's unheard of in this day and age for an offensive lineman to play that many positions.
no doubt.
Right tackle is still a little bit of a flux. You could move Vera Tucker to right tackle, but I think the thinking for him is they want him to remain at right guard. That's where Mekhi Becton kind of comes in, and he's been playing well. They've been giving him more and more reps there. He's looked good throughout the course of the preseason. They just want to make sure he has enough confidence on his knee where he can get through a full game. And if he does, then I think eventually he will be the starting right tackle. But it's just a
Wow.
matter of just getting that confidence in him, especially with a guy that hasn't nearly played a lot of football the last couple of years. Only played one game back in 2021 before suffering his first of 2 knee injuries.
Man, I was going to ask you next if Becton was even going to make the team, and you're telling me he's going to
Yeah,
start at right tackle. That's interesting.
yeah, he's definitely going to make the team there. I know it was some rumors about him possibly being traded, but the way he's playing and the fact that they have a vacancy at right tackle, you can't trade him or cut him at this point. I think he's playing tremendous. I mean,
Hmm.
he literally like bowled over like a couple of Tampa Bay defenders on Saturday night. He played only like 25 snaps, but those 25 snaps were pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'll never forget having dinner in Prime 47 Steakhouse in Indianapolis, and it got dark all of a sudden above me. And it was because Becton had walked past me and blocked out the lights on the ceiling.
He's
And
like
I
an
thought
NBA player.
it was nuts. I've never seen a human that large or that close to me. It was something else. If he can take that step, like you said, feel healthy enough and be effective, man, oh man, will the Jets be exciting. So you mentioned Tippmann, who obviously looks like he was drafted to be the heir apparent at center. I saw him at guard a little bit too.
Yes.
Do they think he has that flexibility to pop in and help somebody anywhere on the interior? Or do you think they're still testing that and figuring that out themselves?
It's a little bit of both. I think they do think he has some flexibility to play at guard. Lincoln Tomlinson was out with an injury last week, so they had to reshuffle their line a little bit. So that's kind of why you saw Tippin there at the guard position. But yeah, this is the best time to find out during training camp. You don't want to necessarily find out during the game that somebody has flexibility in order to move at guard or whatever. So yeah, I think the best course of action is to practice him at guard, see if he can handle it there. I thought he did, a solid job there. Obviously, his job is at the center position, and he's a tall center. I mean, 6'5". You don't typically see a lot
Yeah.
of centers that are that tall. I was actually surprised the Jets took him. I thought Smith, who the Giants took,
Yeah.
would be their target, but that was a little bit surprising, but they like Tippin, and I think Tippin has played really well throughout the course of preseason too.
I agree with you, especially because I remember during the process, there were some people who said, even though there were some people who liked Tippmann better as a center, some people who liked Schmitz, but there were also people who thought Tippmann might end up being more of a guard in the NFL, which is interesting
Because his
that he's,
height.
yeah, exactly. It's very interesting now that he's already kind of, getting some reps there, getting some looks. And obviously in the modern NFL, if you draft a guy, let's say you drafted him to be a center, but he turns into a stud guard, I mean, the more the merrier, man, right? Like, you look
You
at
got
what
to
these,
have that flexibility.
yeah, and you look at like what Martin just got paid sitting out with Dallas while, all these running backs are just walking back with their tail between their legs, taking pay cuts or whatever it is. So premium position, even if he ends up at guard, that's great. So wait,
Yeah, and also real quick, like the Jets had 11 different players on the offensive line last year start games. Like that was the most in the NFL by miles. So you got to make sure you can have that cross training and flexibility at those positions too.
so wait, you don't sound to me too. I mean, I know you were just kind of going down the line, but am I correct? Like, I know Aaron Rodgers has, of course, said the line needs to kind of step up. The offense needs to figure it out. We saw Robert Saleh say it too, but you do not sound terribly worried. Sounds like you think some of these guys, whether they're coming back off injury, like Vera Tucker, or whether it's Becton stepping up, it sounds to me like you're a little bit more confident in them maybe than like the national media focus is.
I just need them to play together. That's the main thing. Just getting
Okay.
that chemistry to play together. It's not necessarily. I think once they play together, I think they'll be fine on the field. It's just you just haven't. They just hadn't played together on the field all at the same time. Even last year, Duane Brown was out for the first 4 games of the season with the shoulder injury. He comes back, and then you have a problem at right tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker gets hurt. Max Mitchell, who's been playing swing tackle left and right, he had suffered the blood clot situation. George Fant was hurt. Like it was just one thing after the other. It was again like you have a leaky faucet, and then you fix one problem, and then it's another problem that happens throughout the course. When you're trying to fix it, that's kind of what the Jets' offensive line was last year. It's you think you fix one issue, and then you got another one on the other side, and
No
you just
doubt.
can't get it together. But I think now you just need to have that chemistry. If they do, then I think they'll be a solid unit. I'm not going to say they're going to be the best offensive line in the league, but I definitely think if you have a above average line, then I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, interesting. So I have to ask you this too. This is like the most recent thing that stuck out to me. I was watching the pregame show before the Jets' most recent preseason game against the Bucks, and Otis Livingston from CBS had to sit down with Aaron Rodgers and asked him about New York, what his plans, his goals, etc. And Rodgers said that, he thinks he can win here. He thinks the Jets can win, and he's hopeful to put in, I think he said something like a few really good years or something like that. And then he said something, which I'm not sure if he had said this before, but he said, and hopefully I can hand it back off to Zach and he can, take it from there for a long time. And I kind of looked at the television and I said, wait a second. Did Rodgers just say the plan here is to make it's like the Green Bay plan, the Aaron Rodgers from Brett Favre Green Bay plan? And I don't know if anyone has said that before, but is that really how the Jets are talking about this, like behind the scenes to Zach Wilson? Are they looking at this like Zach really is a salvageable successor to Aaron Rodgers? Or is that just trying to pump up a young player who needs confidence?
I think they want to see how far Zach can get better. I think he has gotten better. I think he's a decent backup now. I'm not going to sit up here and say and fix my lips to say that he's all if they did this completely 180 turnaround from a
Yeah.
quarterback from last year. I think ultimately he's playing a lot better. He's being more efficient with the football. This is was looked at as a whole reset for Zach Wilson this all season. Like they
Mm,
wanted to work on his mechanics, obviously learning the new offense with Nathaniel Hackett there and having a guy like Aaron Rodgers being his tutor and just telling him what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong, something that he didn't have. I mean, he had Joe Flacco there, but they basically just handed him the job when he first got to New York, and I don't think I think that was a detriment to him instead of them trying to make him earn it and also have a veteran. Look at what the Panthers have done with Bryce Young. They have a guy like Andy Dalton, and they also made him earn it. Like Frank Wright just recently announced him to be the starting quarterback. But you
yeah.
have a guy like Andy Dalton that's he's able to learn from, bounce things off of. And I don't think Zach really had that his first 2 years. And I think, if they had a chance to do that over again, well, they might have drafted Justin Fields instead of Zach Wilson, but if they had a chance to do it all over again, at least if they were going to draft Zach, then they would have somebody that like an Andy Dalton that could also mentor him. Ultimately, I don't think he's going to be here, whether how long Aaron plays or not. I mean, who knows what the next 2 years might look like? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the Jets have to make the playoffs. If they don't, then that could start a whole chain of other unfortunate events for which I won't go down too far now. But we don't know what the next 2 years might bring. But I think I imagine Zach will be there for the next 2 years, and they might find a replacement if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire after that.
It's like you read my mind, and no, let's go there. So my next question was going to be about, I'm not shying away. So we got Joe Douglas year 5, Robert Saleh year 3. You and I both know that, there was some pressure and some chatter last year about how south things were going at the end of the year, how much pressure, especially is on a GM who drafts a quarterback like Zach Wilson that high, who doesn't pan out, but obviously ends up drafting the offensive and defensive rookie of the year. The defense looks promising. The team starts turning around. They recruit Aaron Rodgers. My question to you is, it looks exciting. It looks like they could do a ton with this year's team. Maybe they could go in this year, maybe next year. Maybe they're a contender all of a sudden. But Antwan, is there so much more pressure now on the coach and the GM, especially because it's not year 1 or 2 for either, that if this goes south, could this go terribly south for them? Like, will there be no organizational patience for failure given now all of these added expectations that have been added on top of them?
I think, I'll say this before I get into the answer. This is also going to be a precursor for an article that I'll write later on.
Yeah.
I think the Jets are going to have the biggest target on their back out of any NFL team. And I think you kind of saw it with the Sean Payton comments too, out of any NFL team around, period, because they are the media darling. They're the ones, they're on ESPN getting talked about every single day. And I know Mike Greenberg's a Jets fan and all that, but I'm sure there are other 31 other teams that would like to be talked about. But every single day, the Jets are being talked about. Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, this, that, and the other. Like, you even got a team like the Giants who did make the playoffs last year, who did make the playoffs. They don't get nearly the attention that the Jets are getting right now.
No
So they they're gonna have the biggest target on their back out of 18. So yeah, like they have to win this year. Like they know it. People, Robert Saleh. That's why you go get a guy like Aaron Rodgers. That's why you do not wait to see if Zach Wilson can, turn it around in year 3 because they know the pressure is on. They know they have to win. Yeah, you drafted Garrett Wilson, you drafted Sauce Gardner, but what did that get you last year? You started 7-4. I thought they were ahead of schedule last year. I don't know if a lot of people thought they would be in the midst to be a playoff team, but they were. They had an opportunity. They had a great opportunity to make the playoffs. They lost 6 straight to end the year, and then you start to hear a little bit of rumblings there. So now they're ahead of schedule. So what's the next step? And now the Jets also they coincide. They have the longest playoff drought out of any team in the 4 major professional sports. Them and the Buffalo Sabres are tied for that right now. So you think Woody Johnson wants that on his head? No, they want to win. They not only do they expect to win, they want to win. And if they don't win, it could be a lot of wholesale changes there. And obviously, they want Aaron Rodgers to continue playing. But remember 2000, I won't give Jets fans too much of a round, but 2008, Brett Favre came in. They started out 8-2, I believe, and then they missed the playoffs. And then you look at Eric Mangini was fired. Brett Favre ended up going to Minnesota, and they brought a whole bunch of changes, which was good at the time because Rich Ryan ended up coming in, and they instantly turned it around and went to 2 straight AFC championships. But yeah, they're kind of the similar situation that they were in back then too. So they have to win. And I think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas actually know that.
All right, so let's get to speaking of having to win. So they're playing the Giants in this preseason game. They also play the Giants in the regular season. It's their 8th game. They have a bye after their first 7, right? So their first 7 games versus the Bills, at the Cowboys, versus the Patriots, versus the Chiefs, at the Broncos, versus the Eagles. Antwan, what is their record going into that Giants game? What is the Jets' record going to be? I mean, it doesn't really matter what team they are. That schedule is so brutal.
That's murderer's row. That's a murderer's schedule. They gave them a lot of home games early on, but they did them no favors by schedule. The Chiefs and the Eagles, like 2 of your last 3 games before the bye week. That's brutal. I know they're both at home, but that's still brutal. Very brutal. I
Man.
have them. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 4-3. Like,
Okay.
and they could easily be 3-4, and I think they still might be in good shape. Anything below 3-4, I think they're gonna be in some trouble there because you still got to play the Dolphins twice. You still got to play Buffalo again. You got to go to New England later on in the season, and Cleveland is what I think Cleveland might be a sneaky team to watch out for, considering what happens if Deshaun Watson returns back to form too. They definitely have the weapons to be a playoff contention team, especially with Nick Chubb there, Mari Cooper as well. So, and they have a great defender and obviously Myles Garrett who can cause havoc in the backfield. So their
Yeah.
schedule is not as tough later on, but it's still some possible hiccups there later on in the season. So if you start 2-5, I think you can be in a little bit of trouble there because that now at that place, especially in the AFC where it's so stacked, I think 10-7, has to be probably like the minimum if you're going to get into one of the wild card spots.
Agree, agree. All right. So for this preseason game, of course, now we know Aaron Rodgers is playing, but could you give us some underrated standouts or sleepers, either guys clawing for roster spots, or maybe they've already made your 53 in your mind, but that people should be watching when they tune into this Giants Jets preseason finale?
Well, the Jets don't really necessarily have a lot of spots available, but one of them is possibly their sixth wide receiver spot. So you got Jason Brownlee. You also have Malik Taylor and Xavier Gibson too, who all competing for that last spot. I think Gibson has the edge because he can play special teams there. They need a returner. Obviously, McCole Hartman can also play a little bit of role in that as well. But I also think they would like for him to play more of a receiver role, something that he didn't necessarily do with the Chiefs a whole lot when during his career there. But yeah, I think that six wide receiver spot. Just keep an eye on those guys there as a possible players to watch too as well. And also Zonovan Knight. I think I know Izzy Benikanda is somebody that I think is gonna make the roster there. But
Hmm.
Zonovan Knight, he's a guy that's on the cut line right now. He understands, especially when they go outside a guy like Dalvin Cook. They're not going to keep five running backs. They're going to keep four, possibly. There's a chance they possibly may keep three, but I think they might keep four running backs there, and then Knight might be the odd man out. So I expect him to get a lot of playing time against the Giants, and even if he's not, auditioning to be with the Jets, it might be with another team down the line that needs some depth at the running back position.
Hmm. You have any read on how much Rodgers will play, or could it be something like Daniel Jones last game? It was possible he would play a quarter, but then he goes down the field, scores on the first drive, gets a good amount of plays in, a good amount of throws, and they just take him out right there. Do you think it'll be kind of reading that?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
don't blink or he's going to be out the game pretty quickly. So I would say the maximum probably two series, but depending on how they do the first possession, because you would know this better than I would. I don't think any starters for the Giants are going to be playing in that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, not
So
only
if they
only
go
like
down and score a touchdown,
yeah. Only like rookies, like for example, like I would think like the rookie corners will play even though they're starters, right? Stuff like that, like Deontay Banks and Hawkins. But yeah, like all the Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Saquon Barkley, Darren Waller, I would, Daniel Jones, I wouldn't expect them.
that's what I thought. So if they go down and score a touchdown on their first drive, then he's probably out of there. Like they want to get him out of there, but it just depends on how the offense looks the first one or two possessions. But I would expect more than anything, more than two.
Gotcha. Okay, so I hinted at it a little bit, bringing up those first 7 games. I'm not sure if you're still kind of crafting this, but figured I'll ask you: do you have a record prediction yet for the Jets, or a season prediction yet, or at least a ballpark of where you think they end up, or are you still honing this? You still waiting to see how it settles out come week one?
Well, we have season previews that we have to do too, so I know that's why you asked me that. I think right now, probably 10-7. I think that's a good mark for them, especially considering how tough the schedule is early on. As I said, I had them like at 4-3, like for the bye week, and then maybe they lose like 4 games after that too. But I think 10-7 wild card. I think that's a good spot for them. They might win a playoff game too. If they do that, then I think a lot of Jets fans would be satisfied with that.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think while yeah, I say they make the playoffs too. I think they maybe even win the division. I guess I'm just waiting to see how the O line settles out. But I have a lot of questions about Buffalo, man. I just
Me
don't
too.
Nothing
It's a
feels
lot of
right about.
smoke.
Yeah, man. Nothing feels right about what's going on up there. I don't think New England's going to challenge for the division, let alone even a wild card. And so then it's really
Miami
just
though,
about Miami. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that other team to watch. If Tua can stay, that's the mid thing. It's a big if, but if he stays healthy, you saw. I think we saw what Miami was last year, especially with that offense with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle there. They also have offensive line concerns too. It's funny. The three best teams in the AFC East all have offensive line issues. The team that doesn't, the Patriots, then they have a quarterback issue. So that's really the big thing, the biggest difference between the teams.
no doubt. All right. So put you on the spot then, because it sounds like maybe you were either working on or filed your predictions already. Did you pick a Super Bowl winner yet?
I'm going with Cincinnati. I think the Bengals finally do it. I think they win the AFC. I think they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I think they get it done. I think Joe Burrow gets it done. I think they could have beat the Chiefs last year too if it wasn't for a dumb play out of bounds late in the game. But yeah, I think they're the team that does not fear the Chiefs whatsoever, and I think they can go in whether it be in Arrowhead or at home they can beat the Chiefs anywhere, and I think they feel confident that they can do that.
Man, I love that pick. That's been the team for the last month or so, talking to people, formulating where I'm going. I want to pick Cincinnati. I'm picking it tonight, actually. So the next time I do the podcast, people will know what I'm picking. But it's like with Burrow's injury, obviously, it sounds like they're saying he looks great, he feels great, he'll be okay. Probably by week 5, we won't even be talking about it. But with losing those safeties and having Burrow go down like that in the preseason, there's just a little small part of me that's hesitating. I
Yeah,
like that you went all in there though, because I agree with everything you said.
it's hard to repeat though. Like it's really hard to if any team. Like I mean, I know everybody. You can pick the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes every single year, but I just feel like it's just the Bengals' time. I really do. Like they got close the last couple of years. They lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. They had to take almost got back there last year. So I just feel like it's just their time. I feel like him and Burrow are going to be going back and forth, and Mahomes might end up having 5 Super Bowls. I think Burrow might have 2 or 3, and I think that's just how it's going to be in the AFC. And it's going to be the AFC is going to go through them like basically the next 10+ years.
Man, this is going to be a fun season, a great season. Can't wait. Antwan Staley, you can find him on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. This guy's everywhere. Obviously, you'll probably see him on Hard Knocks sometime. Backpage Breakdown is the new podcast coming on Believe. Check it out. I can't wait for that. Everybody remember also go get some Estate 98 Esencia de Cafe from El Salvador. It's coffee. You can make it in 3 seconds. Iced coffee on the go. I do it all the time when I'm doing the podcast, and I'm a few minutes late to record like I was with Antwan today. And also we are presented again by Bet Online. Great podcast, great information as always. Antwan, will continue following your work, and we look forward to your Believe podcast and continued coverage in the daily news. Thanks again for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Take care.